You're listening to the Back Porch Talk podcast. Danny and Jason had many discussions and debates on the back porch while making pivotal investment moves with assets. That's right, with trading cards. They welcome you to the back porch and right into those discussions about current sports news with a fresh and unique twist. So come on and join us. Welcome to the Back Porch Talk podcast from your coach Jason.
Your coach Danny.
Fans, we got a full show for you today. Little NCAA tournament action, little Formula One, and it is springtime officially with Major League Baseball starting. But first, Danny, into the NCAA tournament, and so we finally have the Sweet 16 established. There were some highlights, some buzzer beaters, some disappointments. I can't say necessarily upsets, especially now with the transfer portal and NIL deals kind of mucking things up. So this is going to be interesting moving forward when you talk about the NIL and transfer portal, Danny. I think now we're going to be at the point where there's not going to be as many upsets. I say that because I think NIL deals are going to really gravitate a lot of student athletes. I can't even say student athletes anymore. A lot of the athletes to gravitate towards the money. Those with the most money, i.e. the high profile, Power 5, 4 schools, whatever, how you want to designate them. They're going to have the money. They're going to have the multi-millions of dollars to really give to the athletes. And so the athletes are going to gravitate towards the money. And there may be a few athletes who will, go closer to home, you say, for instance, and really want to provide an upset in a bracket. But the vast majority is going to gravitate towards the money. I don't think we're going to see these mid majors actually go in here and advance to the Sweet 16 or advance to the Final Four. We'll see. But Danny, I would say one of the buzzer beaters was that of Maryland. The last second shot, man. They advance. Maryland advances against Colorado State. They were down, called timeout. Lo and behold, Maryland goes ahead and does this buzzer beater. I would say, too, there were some intriguing games to me. One game in particular was that of Arkansas against St. John. And I say that because of the two head coaches who basically don't like each other. This is called what it is. Rick Pitino, John Calipari. They go into this game, and St. John's ranked number 2 or seeded number 2. Arkansas seeded number 10. And Arkansas comes out with the win. Just some intriguing games. I watched a couple of them, Danny. I can't say that I watched from Thursday to Sunday. I sat in front of the TV and watched a huge number of games. Mm-hmm. Like I said before, I think I'm more interested in Formula One now. The NCAAs, the only person I know is Cooper Flagg on Duke's team. And so I watched Duke. I hate Duke. Can't stand them. But I do want to see. I wanted to see what Cooper Flagg has to offer. What say you, Danny, about the NCAA tournament?
With this being a chalk year, where most of the higher seeds or top seeds won, there's always going to be that conversation. This happens every so often. Now we'll see if it becomes a trend, though, in the next coming years. To your point, if NIL, where all the major players go to these major programs and more or less, move on from the mid-majors. But I think from the mid-majors standpoint, this is where they have to have the guys that grow up together. They may not be the stars, but they could be older, say the 22s, 23s, and grow together, and no one leaves the program where they can have a chance in this day and age. Everyone wants to see that upset. You had McNeese beat Clemson. Clemson actually almost made a comeback, but there wasn't really that major upset after that. And there's usually that makes March Madness what it is. So when you get these chalk years, it's like okay, but in the same frame, you get some great matchups with these top seeds going into the Sweet 16 and Elite Eight with the top seeds playing each other. One other call out, man, was Wisconsin taking that L to BYU. I knew this would be a
Man.
problem for Wisconsin. It was more like a home game for BYU. I thought Wisconsin got a bad location. I thought their
Hmm.
seed was right, but I thought they should have been in Milwaukee playing at the five serve, and Iowa State should have been out in Denver playing in that bracket.
Hmm.
So I thought
Hmm.
Wisconsin got a bad draw because they had Montana first, which they ended up, beating. But BYU was just sitting there waiting for them, and BYU's hot, and they have some pretty good players, and they ended up beating Wisconsin. Came back, had a chance to tie at the end, but ended up losing 91-89. So that was one gripe I thought with Wisconsin seating where they should have been at home for them to play here, but it didn't happen that way. They lost, and now they're off to the off season. So now we're on to the Sweet 16, Jason, starting on Thursday night,
Hmm.
and then we'll see what happens with some of these matchups.
And and looking at these matchups, Danny, I mean, you have the likes of Auburn versus Michigan, Ole Miss versus Michigan State, BYU against Alabama, Oregon against Arizona. Excuse me, I'm sorry, Duke against Arizona. Let's see. In the West bracket, you have Florida against Maryland, Texas Tech against Arkansas. In the Midwest, you have Houston against Purdue, Kentucky against Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And so Danny, I'll say this, man. All the schools that I named off, let's think about it for a minute. All the schools I named off, they have money. I don't know. I think moving forward, man, the NCAA tournament, they're going to be some revamps to it. But again, gone are the days where a mid-major, slides into the Sweet 16,
Mm-hmm.
where upsets happen. I think you're just going to see those in the very first round, maybe. But after that, that's it. We'll see. We'll see. The road continues. On the women's side, of course, their NCAA bracket is ongoing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, South Carolina wins 64-53 over Indiana. I think that was close at one point in the
Mm-hmm.
game there, and South Carolina pulls it out. This is going to be interesting to see how the ladies fare up and how the matchups play out. I'm really looking forward to seeing if South Carolina or other teams, kind of the major teams, USC, of course, UConn, I want to, would like to see, so I'm looking for the competition
Yep.
in the ladies game here, but I think too is going to be a point in time in where the money is going to filter to the right schools, and all the athletes are going to go to, towards that money. And now, Danny, on to a little Formula One action, and where this past weekend, Formula One was in China. In China this weekend, there was an actual sprint. And then, of course, there was the actual race itself. And within the sprint, for those who don't know, a sprint is a abbreviated version of the actual race itself. So they do have sprint qualifying rounds, and where the drivers are obviously positioned based upon how fast they go in the qualifying rounds. And Sir Lewis Hamilton was number one. He took pole position, first pole position for a sprint for Ferrari, and first pole position for Lewis Hamilton under the Ferrari brand. And so I was excited to see this. It turns out Sir Lewis Hamilton wins the sprint, garnering major points, points that Ferrari needed. Sir Lewis Hamilton needed. He gained 8 points. I was glad to see this because all the back and forth, the rumors, the talks about whether or not Ferrari made a mistake, or excuse me, where Lewis Hamilton made a mistake and everything, and he goes in and wins a sprint. For the actual race, let's just say it didn't go as well as Ferrari expected. They ended up number five and number six. Sir Lewis Hamilton, number six. Charles Leclerc, number five. But at the end of the race, they were disqualified. And this is just, I mean, come on, Ferrari. If it's not one thing with Ferrari, it's another. This goes from last year to this year. I mean,
Yep.
where the strategies were just off, like the strategy was off the first race of this
Hmm.
season. And then now you can't get right with regards to proper weighing of the cars afterwards, or Ferrari needs to get it together. The reason why I say that is because McLaren is not playing. McLaren is not playing. When you look at the Constructors' Cup standing so far, excuse me, the points, McLaren obviously is number one. They have 78 points already.
Yep.
Mercedes is second at 57. You got to watch out for Mercedes, man. And I have to give Kimi Antonelli, the rookie,
Hmm.
he's 18 years old for Mercedes. Hey,
Yep.
man, he's pretty good. George Russell, I'm not a George Russell fan per se,
He's
but he's finishing.
he's
And
driving well.
Mercedes is second in the Constructors' Cup. I think Ferrari needs to get this together quick, fast, in a hurry. Otherwise, McLaren is just going to run away with this.
Hmm.
Mercedes can run away with this against Ferrari. Got a long season, but man, you're putting yourself in a hole
Yeah.
already. So that's what I ended up doing, Danny. I watched a little Formula One. I was really excited after seeing Lewis Hamilton win the sprint,
Hmm.
thinking that man he can convert this over to the actual race. And so Ferrari has something, but man, they gotta get their strategy. They have to get their communication, radio communication going too, because man, this the back and forth with Lewis Hamilton on some of the communications. You could tell Lewis was, like, what are you talking about? Or give me some information, give me some data.
Yep.
They gotta get that together. And I would have thought they would have gotten that together in the off season.
Hmm.
I would have just had a strategy session and been like, hey, this is how we gonna roll. We're gonna give you some information, we're gonna give you some data. How do you want us to give it to you? Or when you say this, this is what I mean, because everybody else listens, other teams listen on the airwaves.
Yep.
So we're gonna have some code words up in here. I would have broken it down, Danny.
Yeah. No, you could tell he wasn't happy.
I was like, man, are y'all kidding me? Y'all the whole off season.
Hmm.
Y'all couldn't get this together. Y'all could have just done that over Zoom
Yeah.
or Teams. We want
Yeah.
endorsements, Microsoft. We want endorsements, Zoom. But man, y'all could have done better than this, man. I mean, golly. What say you, Dan, about Formula One?
Jason, I'll tell you one thing, the conditions were way better than last week.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There was no rain
Mm-hmm.
and cats weren't spinning out like they were last week and crashing into walls from the rain. And it looked like Piastri was driving from Australia straight to China. The way he was driving in this race, he was not. Because you remember how he finished last week,
Yeah.
where he was up top, and then he ended up finishing what, ninth or eighth or something.
Mm-hmm.
But he came all the way back and walked Sir Lewis Hamilton down at the
Mm-hmm.
end, and he drove with that same aggression in this race.
Mm-hmm.
And Norris, man, he just looks so smooth out there.
Mm-hmm.
And like he's battling Verstappen, and you
Yep.
know how Verstappen drives and
Mm-hmm.
trying to cut corners and things. Norris doesn't get rattled by that. So he's just in a different mode right now. And like you said, McLaren's doing their thing.
Mm-hmm.
George Russell, you gotta give it to him so far, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did not see this from Mercedes. We saw it kind of late in the season last year, from Mercedes with Sir Lewis Hamilton and Russell, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
he's driving well, man. And I I don't know. And Verstappen took fourth. Red Bull is still there.
Yeah.
But it's one of those races where I was hoping Sir Lewis Hamilton, would get his footing. And then what happened, like you
Yeah.
said,
Hmm.
after it's like, because like I said in the first race, you could hear it, or he was going back and forth with the
Hmm.
team. Like,
Hmm.
come on now. All in all, it was a good race. I
Hmm.
thought, like I said, it was nice to see a clean race without the rain.
And for those who don't know, Constructors Cup, that's a team points. There's two drivers per team. And obviously everybody accumulates points. In a race, only points are
Hmm.
given to those who plays 10th and better. And so the more points you accumulate team wise, multi-millions of dollars is distributed depending upon how you place.
Hmm.
And so when you talk about first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth place, I mean, you're talking about multi-millions of dollars. And so this is a big thing. And I think, again, with Ferrari missing out on points this weekend because of the disqualifications, that's huge. And I think each race is going to be huge. Like each sprint is huge.
Hmm.
There's not a lot of sprints. There's only, I want to say, maybe 4 sprints scattered throughout the season.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
Um, and so driver wise, I mean, you got Lando with 44 points, Max 36, George Russell 35, Oscar Piastri 34, the rookie Kimi Antonelli with 22. I mean, you're looking at Sir Lewis Hamilton all the way down at number 9 with 9 points. Charles Leclerc 8. I mean, he's 10th with 8 points. So a lot left in the season, but man, come on, Ferrari, get y'all stuff together.
Yep.
And now, Danny, on to baseball, and where the opening season starts on Thursday. We're finally here. I mean, Chicago Cubs and Dodgers have played over in Japan. What, that was like a week and a half ago now. I
Yep.
don't know how MLB baseball is doing this, but I think they're giving the Cubs and Dodgers some time to make it back to the States and get
Yeah.
reacclimated to the time. But Thursday is opening day. And here we go. We'll see what the Brewers are going to do this season. I don't know. They didn't make a big splash during free agency or during off season. Yeah, I don't know what the Brewers are going to do this year, Danny. This is going to be a tough one. I think this is going to be a tough season. I think this is going to be a tough season. I really do. We've been in the playoffs consecutively here for a number of years. This is going to be a tough one for this season, Danny. I really believe that. I think the Pirates are coming on. Cincy's coming on. Cubs are the Cubs. I mean, this is going to be interesting. What say you about Major League Baseball on opening day?
Well, Jay, talking about the Brewers, they open in New York against the Yankees, of all teams. So that's interesting. It's cool, right? But it's just interesting to see they open there. But I think from the Brewers standpoint too, they get Woodruff back, who's been out for since what 23 after his surgery. So getting him back in the rotation will be huge. They lost, Adames in the offseason. I think he went to the Giants. You just don't know with them because they don't, like you said, they don't do a lot of spending, which I would love for them to get sold for that reason alone to improve the team that way. But
Mm-hmm.
they make do with what they have. And, I'm looking forward to seeing what Churio can do this season, building
Mm-hmm.
on last season. But other than that, though, man, I don't understand the Japan thing. At least it should be spring training. It shouldn't be real games. But whatever. Because everyone else is in spring training, so they go from spring training to real mode back to spring training, back to the real season. Opening day on Thursday. But no, just excited to see how this goes and check out these first few games and see what happens.
Thank you for joining us at Back Porch Talk Podcast. You can also join us on Twitter by tweeting us at back_podcast. For more information, you can go to our website, which is backporchtalkpodcast.com. You can also email us at backporchtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Again, thank you for joining us. And remember that there's enough hate in the world. So go ahead and spread a little love.